God of War Ragnarok came out in November, but since I didn't want to shell out $70 for a new game, I decided to play God of War 2018 instead. I was surprised how much I liked this game the first time I played it, on Give Me God of War mode, no less, as the combat was fun, challenging, and rewarding. I probably play this game at least twice a year since I got it, and there are some fights that I consider especially memorable due to how challenging they are. While I don't consider myself a combat expert at this game, these are the 10 fights in God of War 2018 I consider the hardest. And spoiler alert, I don't think the Valkyrie Queen is the hardest fight in the game. Number 10. Muspelheim Impossible Trial Number 1. While this fight isn't difficult in the damage sense, it's hard because it's a no-hit fight, and the final enemy you fight in this is a Stone Ancient. While these things melt during the rest of the game thanks to Wrath of the Frost Ancient, using it without getting hit is the hard part. Not only that, this Ancient has a sweeping beam attack that you need perfect timing to dodge, and Atreus is no help when it comes to Stone Ancients. It's very unlikely that anyone will complete this trial on their first attempt, but once there's that lucky opening, it can be completed. Number 9. The Night Elf Outpost Tear. This fight always stands out to me because I can never do this tear without the Blades of Chaos you get in the second half of the story. The rest of them I can do, but this one seems impossible. At the point you first encounter this tear, you'll probably be around level 4 at the highest, and the enemies here are level 7 and 8 ice enemies that you have to fight barehanded. Worse, these enemies you can't knock off the edge, and 2 are Vikings who attack fast in the small area you have to fight. However, once you do get the Blades of Chaos and come back to this tear, it's a lot easier thanks to both having higher level equipment and access to better skills. Number 8. The second troll fight. At this point in the game, you barely have anything to work with and have to fight a boss. There's no heavy runic attacks, only a handful of skills, beginner gear, and Atreus is pretty weak. Also keep in mind that in this fight, you are not only fighting the troll, but the reavers that spawn as well, and these enemies are long range, so if you ignore them, then they will kill you while you focus on the troll. While the first troll only had 2 attacks that were predictable, this troll has a few other moves, such as throwing lava and making lava appear on the ground to do burn damage. Also, there's no way to have a health or rage upgrade at this point, so putting this all together makes for quite the challenge. Number 7. The Dragon Boss. This might come as a surprise to anyone who's played this game, but after running through again, this fight definitely stood out. In fact, if there weren't any checkpoints in this fight, I would probably rank it a lot higher. There are multiple stages in this fight, and doing the whole thing without dying once is definitely a challenge. For one, the opportunities to attack the dragon all come with risk, since there's a chance you will take damage once you start attacking, and this is true for all parts of this fight. For the second part especially, you don't have Atreus with you, and that means no resurrection stone to revive you if you die. One last thing to point out is that for this and the previous ranked troll fight, you can't come back and fight this boss later after gearing up. Once you start it, you have to finish it with what you have currently, and so that is why the dragon fight is my number 7. Number 6. The Fafnir Area Traveler. This is another fight that might come as a surprise, but for most people, this fight will probably be the first time in the game they encounter a traveler. Travelers have long range and slow attacks, but high health, so having to fight not only one, but reavers as well in a small area is brutal to say the least. Like with the second troll fight, you can't ignore the traveler and focus on the reavers, because of how small the area is, and those wide sweeping sword strikes not only can catch players unaware, but can take out most if not all of Kratos' health at this point. Also like with the troll fight, reavers spawn at specific points during the fight, and that makes the small area all the more noticeable. Patience and careful timing can win this fight, but it's by no means easy unless you come here at a later point in the game. Number 5. The Wulver Tear. The reason this fight is on my list should be pretty self-explanatory, as anyone who has played this game knows how dangerous Wulvers are. In fact, the only regular enemy in the game that I panic over all throughout because of how their attack style is different than all the other enemies. For this tear specifically, it will either be the first or second time you encounter Wulvers, and the ones in this fight can one-shot Kratos with any one of their attacks. Your only hope to complete this tear, if you aren't properly geared up, is to either keep your distance and hit them from range, or cross your fingers and knock them off the cliff, which is possible if you use Frost Giant's Frenzy, but it's extremely rare. There's no surefire way to win this fight, and I consider this tear to be the hardest regular enemy tear in the game. Number 4. The Valkyrie Queen. Yes, I do not think that the Valkyrie Queen is the hardest fight in the game. For those who do, I wonder what you think of the rest of my list. While I'm not saying the Queen is the super easy pushover, it's still a one-on-one fight, so you don't have to keep track of multiple enemies. When I first heard how hard this boss supposedly was, I was thinking Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Unknown as Terra, so I was surprised when I actually fought this boss for the first time. It seems like the only thing that makes her difficult is the fact that she does so much damage and has a lot of health, and it's because of this you need to keep on your toes. However, the reason she's only ranked at 4 is because in order to fight her, you had to fight the 8 other Valkyries already, and there is nothing in the Queen's move pool you haven't already encountered and should know how to deal with at this point. In fact, I can usually beat this boss by my 3rd or 4th attempt, due to how predictable the Queen's moves are. Number 3. Magni and Modi, the Sons of Thor. Like the dragon fight, this one has checkpoints, and thank Valhalla for that, because without them, this fight would be even more of a nightmare. This is the one boss fight in the game where you fight 2 bosses at once, and it's really Modi that makes this fight so unbearable. He has a shield to guard attacks, so you have to block break him, and his long laser attack you have to interrupt, or else your health will drain real fast. Plus, he and Magni have AoE attacks, which you have to run to the edge to avoid, because they can't be blocked, and even if you avoid them, there's an immediate follow-up which you have to be ready for. This is another fight you can't run away from and have to just get through somehow, with what you have on hand. Also, the fact that this is 2 enemies and not 1 adds a lot of variety to what the attack timings will be, and this is why I have ranked this fight so high. Number 2. Kara, the Summoning Valkyrie. Yes, I consider the Summoning Valkyrie harder than the Valkyrie Queen, and it's because of her ability to summon that I think this. The summon ability is the one move that this Valkyrie has that the Queen does not, and having to fight multiple enemies at once is definitely much harder than one single enemy, no matter how strong. It not only gives you more things to focus on, but also varies the attack timings. Plus, the summoning keeps going during the entire fight. As soon as you clear out one wave, another wave starts, and there's no way to interrupt the summoning move. The only way to get rid of the enemies quickly is to knock them off the edge, but due to the Valkyrie hitting you with long-range moves, you have to guard or dodge them or else lose big chunks of health. If there were no summons, this would be the easiest Valkyrie, but with them, this Valkyrie is the hardest. The good news is that once you kill the Valkyrie, the rest of the enemies disappear. But you can't only focus on the Valkyrie or else you will take damage from random attacks you didn't see coming. Once you beat this Valkyrie though, you never have to fight another boss that can summon. Before I get to what I consider the hardest fight in the game, here are some honorable mentions that just didn't quite make the cut. The Forest Ancient. Another fight where there's one major enemy and a bunch of minor enemies. This Stone Ancient fight gives you nothing to hide behind, so when it does its laser attack, you will most likely get hit. However, if you use Wrath of the Frost Ancient, the big guy will go down, and then you can focus on the rest of the enemies no problem. The Niflheim Valkyrie. You most likely won't start this fight with full health, and you will need gear that will slow down the Niflheim timer, or else you won't have the time to kill this Valkyrie. At least when you kill her, the timer resets, but you will have to do as much damage as you can during the openings, or else the mist is definitely going to kill you. The Wildwood Edge Fight. This is one of the earliest fights in the game, and at this point, you pretty much have nothing that would make this fight easier. No counter slam, no projectile counter, Atreus sucks, and there's no hope for staggering, and the amount of enemies you fight is hard. The trick to get through this fight is to run to this spot and patiently take out the melee Draugr, while focusing on the ranged enemies once all the melee guys are dead. The Dark Elf King. The first time I did this fight, it took me a few hours, but thanks to the trick with the Executioner's Cleave, this fight is a lot less intimidating. Sure, the blindness is annoying, but you have a big room to fight in, and while you can't get in a lot of damage at once, those little hits add up in the long run. Number 1. The Fafnir Third Shrine Terror. I hate this fight, plain and simple. This is the one fight I hate doing every time I play this game, and it takes me at least a dozen attempts or so to finally get this right. Not only do you have to fight 2 Vikings that have unblockable attacks, backed up by a Revenant that can hit you from anywhere, but there's also a damn dragon breathing lightning that forces you to move. Getting hit by that dragon breath once hurts like hell, since you'll most likely be level 3 or 4 during this fight. This is also when you notice that Vikings can heal, and the damage you dish out when you most likely start this fight is pathetic, so you will have to depend on Atreus' arrows to pull their weight. Let up on one of the Vikings, and they will immediately start to heal and undo all your progress. Even if you take out one enemy, you've got two others going after you, who can take out more than half your health with one attack. This fight, you will not only need a lot of skill, but a lot of luck as well, and it's because of all this here that I consider it the hardest fight in God of War 2018. Maybe my opinion would be different if I didn't only play this game on Give Me God of War mode, but if a game is too easy, then it's not rewarding to finish it. Anyway, feel free to leave a comment on why I'm wrong about the Valkyrie Queen, or what you would consider the hardest fight in God of War 2018. But until then, bye, and I'll see you later.